who had raped and pillaged downtown Kuwait City, and now were trying to get out of the country before they were caught.
Later that day, the British also experienced the destructiveness of air power. The British division had peeled away from the main American thrust to attack the Iraqi reserves behind the old front line. Mostly it was a matter of rounding up thousands of demoralized soldiers. Iraqi troops killed only one British soldier. But just before 3 o'clock, British troops captured an Iraqi position known as Objective Steel. 2 British warriors, full of infantrymen, took up position near the Iraqi trenches. What happened next remains controversial. The British say they told the Americans where they were. The Americans deny this. What is certain is that while the British prepared to destroy the Iraqi emplacements, 2 American A-10s concluded the warriors were enemy tanks.
It was just like a flash. And then suddenly you got this searing pain across your face and your hands up.
And then all of a sudden, I had this vision of myself floating up towards the air. And I remember saying to myself, well, you know, that's your numbers up sort of thing. Now you're on your way to heaven.
I look in the back of the vehicle. And what I saw in the back of my vehicle, I would never want to see anything like that again in my life.
And I realised that 2 of the 2 lads who died in the rear of the vehicle, who was sitting next to me.
And I see the second vehicle, the vehicle that had come around to help us, is suddenly going in and out like a pressurised can. It's expanding and contracting and expanding and then contracting. And I realised in that split second that that vehicle was going to explode.
9 men died. Friendly fire killed at least 35 Americans, a quarter of their dead. An American spy plane now recorded this radar image of the battlefield. It showed the Republican Guard, Saddam Hussein's best troops, starting to escape. To Schwarzkopf's fury, American forces had yet to engage these elite divisions, over 60,000 men and their tanks.
Here we have the golden opportunity to accomplish far beyond our dreams what it is we set out to accomplish, and to get this thing over once and for all very quickly. And it doesn't seem like we are able to capitalize on that opportunity.
The American tanks were driving hard. Schwarzkopf wanted them to drive harder. He had assumed the Republican Guard would move south to defend Kuwait, but they hadn't, and the Americans were struggling to make up the distance. Schwarzkopf wanted a headlong charge. The commander on the ground was more cautious.
You get a probability of increased casualties. You get the probability of an attack that starts and stops and starts and stops, loses momentum. I wanted to hit the Republican Guards with a 3-division fist. I didn't want to poke at them with fingers, in other words, piecemeal commitment of my forces. I want to hit them with a fist at full speed,
On the 3rd afternoon of the war, battle was finally joined with the Republican Guard. An armored cavalry troop of 9 tanks and 12 infantry carriers was leading the American advance. Ahead, behind a slight rise in the desert, Republican Guard tanks waited in ambush. The first tank approached.
As we crested the rise, my gunner identified tanks to our direct front, and he said, "Identified tanks." I yelled, "Fire." As I was yelling fire on the intercom, the gun erupted. The round impacted on the frontal slope of the tank, and the tank commander was ejected out of the hatch, and he himself was in flames. As the other tanks crested the rise, they began to select their targets and engaged in an almost simultaneous manner. So 15 seconds before, there was a cohesive or coherent Iraqi defense. 15 seconds later, that defense was completely in flames. when we look back over the armored vehicles, you think, my God, like, this is what an armored cavalry troop in the assault can accomplish in that short amount of time.
They called it the Battle of 73 Easting, after the map coordinate. 28 Republican Guard tanks were destroyed. That night, the Americans routed an entire division of the Republican Guard. The other 5 Republican Guard divisions started